Hello beautiful, my name is Mina. Welcome to my channel Mina Reads, and today we are going to be doing my mid-year freakout tag. So as I was sitting down to prepare for this video and answering these questions, it really made me kind of look back and reflect on my reading year so far, especially in terms of the numbers. So I am going to quickly pull up my story graph so that we can look at just a few like random stats. I think the story graph is pretty cool. I've been using it pretty frequently, and I'm just going to show you what my story graph looks like. So it'll be up there on the screen. So I have read about 89 books so far this year. You can see that I've read about 22,619 pages. I've read from a lot of different moods, which is interesting. It looks like my biggest mood is actually emotional. The second two that are the highest is lighthearted and adventurous, so that's cool. I don't like the stat for pacing because I feel like it's just kind of random. I guess I could fix it and I could put my own metrics of how fast or slowly paced the book is, but I don't feel like doing that. I got the little page number stats. Most of my books have been under 300 pages, which makes a lot of sense. I am a short book kind of girly. Lots of fiction, a little bit of nonfiction, which I am very proud of because last year my stats included absolutely no nonfiction. So I am proud of myself and my little 6% nonfiction. And then with genres, we definitely have romance leading the pack. Then we have LGBTQ, which is kind of interesting. And then fantasy, and then manga, which I wouldn't necessarily consider to be a genre. It's just a format of story, but you know, whatever. The format stat, I don't enjoy it because it's also not like accurate really, because I haven't went in to edit it. But I do like this stat about like my most read authors. So my most read authors so far have been Shay Sanders, who is a black romance author, and Sue Morishita, who is the author of the manga Sign of Affection. The other two are tied. So the second highest is T. Kingfisher. I have read 4 of her books so far, and I'm hoping to read many more this year because I'm looking to binge her backlist. So that's pretty fun. Already went over how many books and how many pages. And then we have our star rating. So my star rating is a 3.2 star rating, and I would say that that's very middling, but it's actually above middling if we're going on a 5-point scale. Like middling would be 2.5, and so the fact that I'm at a 3.2 is actually pretty decent. You know, it's a little bit above midway, you know, like it's not that bad. So looking at those stats and kind of reflecting on that, it made me realize that I have a very, very strong negativity bias because I have been spending I have looked back at so many of my wrap-ups from this year, and I've been constantly starting videos out by being like, like it wasn't a great reading month, I didn't enjoy that many things, oh my god, blah blah blah. And then, you know, I'm like ranting and raving about how the reading month wasn't that great, and I talk about all the books I didn't like, and you know, there's definitely some books in there that I did enjoy, but I feel like I have such a strong bias towards the negative, and I feel like bad reading experiences leave such a huge impact on me in comparison to the better reading experiences that I've had. Because looking back at this, and as I was like writing my little list, I have the questions here, and as I was writing my little list, I realized that there were so many books that I read this year that I really enjoyed, that were great, new authors that I encountered that I absolutely loved, and it just made me realize how much I focused on the negative aspects of the reading year, and it's like, oh, this disappointment and that disappointment, but like the year is not that bad. The stats are not that bad. Like a 3.2 star is not that bad in the grand scheme of things, you know? For having read 89 books, like I feel like that is pretty decent. Like it's not quite as horrible as I would have expected it to be based on how negatively I perceive the reading year to be going. So I don't know, that was just interesting. I hope you enjoyed that little quick moment through my story graph stats, and now we're going to get into the mid-year freakout tag. So the first question is the best book you've read so far in 2022, and for me that's definitely going to have to be She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. Just an absolutely incredible book that I read in January. I just absolutely loved it. I think the writing style is absolutely incredible. This is a military fantasy, supposedly it's a Mulan retelling. I wouldn't necessarily consider it that, and I wouldn't encourage people to read it based on that marketing, but it is about this character named Ju, and Ju is basically this person who is disguising themselves as a man so that they can become a monk, and it is about how they go from monk to this really high-powered individual, and it's just such an incredible story. I love the political machinations in it. I love how intelligent our main character is. I love all the characters. I think they're so fascinating, and the story was just incredible, just absolutely incredible on so many different levels, and I really need to reread it at this point because I don't know, it just was so incredible, and I can't wait to read the sequel. So I feel like the answer to my woes is to reread it, like maybe soon. But it's just such an incredible book. Like, I think if you like fantasy, I would recommend it. But I think even if you don't like fantasy, even if you're more of a historical fiction kind of person, I think you could really appreciate it. Like, if you just really like lyrical, beautiful writing, you might really be able to enjoy it. It's just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. I loved it so much. And yeah, definitely my favorite thing I've read so far this year. The best sequel that I've read in 2022, I would have to say, is definitely Paladin's Hope, which is the third book in the Saint of Steel series by T. Kingfisher. Saint of Steel is this god who has recently died, actually, and so a lot of his followers, who are these paladins who were like his holy warriors, they're kind of set adrift after he dies, and they don't really know what to do with themselves, and so they're all kind of taking these odd jobs to find meaning again. And so this book is about one of the paladins, Galen, and he finds meaning in helping this police officer who is kind of like a talking badger named Earstripe. So he helps Earstripe like solve crimes and stuff, and he ends up meeting this guy who works at the morgue named Piper, and so this is a story about them all solving a very mysterious string of murders together, while also Galen and Piper are falling in love with each other, and it's just so good. It's like the best fantasy romance I've ever read, and I want to call it a cozy fantasy, but can you call it a cozy fantasy when they're like solving a really gruesome murder and like it kind of has horror elements to it? I don't know, but I feel like it is a fantasy, and I feel like the fantasy world is really interesting, and something about the reading experience is very like cozy and heartwarming, even though the subject matter is wild, and I just loved it so much. It was just incredible. I personally have not read anything quite like it before or since, and I loved it so much, and I love the characters, and I still think so fondly about Earstripe, who is this talking animal character. I love him so much. He's just so adorable, and I love him. Like, I can't help but love him. So yeah, a new release that I'm still looking forward to reading, that would have to be American Royalty by Tracy Livesay. This is a royalty romance about this, like, the girl, she's a rap star, and the guy, he is a royal for some country. I don't know if it's like a fictional country or if he's supposed to be a royal for England. I don't know the specifics about that, but I do really want to read it because the cover is beautiful, and the girls on TikTok are saying it's good, so I'm gonna give it a shot. Then my most anticipated release for the second half of the year definitely has to be The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. I really enjoyed the Atlas 6, and I think that the Atlas Paradox is going to be so great, especially with the information that we find out at the end of the Atlas 6. I just feel like the story is just gonna explode from here, and I can't wait to see where everything's going. Also, I would say that I'm really looking forward to Astrid Parker. What is it called? I can't remember what it's called now because I wrote it in my little notebook as just Astrid Parker, and I have no idea what the rest of the title is. But this is the sequel to Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and this is about Delilah's stepsister Astrid, and I really liked Astrid's character a whole lot in Delilah Green, so I can't wait to see what her story is going to be like. And I just love Delilah Green, one of my favorite books of the year, so I have very high hopes for this sequel. My biggest disappointment definitely has to be Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I enjoyed absolutely nothing about the book. Like, I can't think of a single thing, a single moment that I enjoyed the book. So Under the Whispering Door is about this character named, I was gonna say his name is Wallace. I don't know if that's true. Is it? It might not be, but it's about this guy, and basically in life he was a piece of shit. He dies and he ends up in like this purgatory, and so this is a story about him in purgatory, kind of trying to come to grips with his death and the kind of person he was in life, and like making all these strides towards being a better person before he goes to the afterlife, and not just this purgatory, which is conceptualized as a tea shop, which is run by this hunky guy that the main character ends up like falling in love with, and it just was so fucking, no, I didn't like it. I think the guy's name is Wallace. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but we're gonna call him Wallace. I just hated the main character. I hated him. I did not buy his, you know, journey towards being a better person. He just was an asshole. He just sucked, and I don't think that enough emotional work was put in to make me feel like he had become a better person or he had made any strides to being a better person. And I also hate the fact that the two people who are kind of helping him, or the three people rather, who are helping him through his afterlife and helping him into being a better person are all people of color, and then he's just like this shitty white man that gets the benefit and the redemption of being rehabilitated by all these magical, infinitely patient people of color who just love him so much and think he's amazing. Like, it just gave me the ick really bad. I felt like it was just inexcusably boring. I think that TJ Klune's writing style usually is like very quirky and fun and cute, but it actually just was cheesy and saccharine and cringe and not funny. And it just irritated me, honestly, to no end. Like, I could find infinite ways to talk about how much I fucking hated this book, but I won't. I'll stop here and just say that I really didn't like it, and it was a huge disappointment to me because I have read multiple TJ Klune books in the past and really enjoyed them, so it absolutely blindsided me that I read this book and I gave it 1 star, but it was absolutely a 1 star to me. Like, I enjoyed nothing about it. Biggest surprise. My biggest surprise definitely has to be Saint by Sierra Simone. This is a book that I gave 5 stars, and I honestly can't believe it. Like, I still am a bit in shock by that rating because I've read multiple books by Sierra Simone in the past, and a lot of them were duds. I read one of them and I gave it like 4 stars, but the other 2 that I read by her were like 2 stars, like, you know, nothing too great, nothing too spectacular, but I did feel like there was a lot of promise in her writing style. And Saint is a story about this character named Aiden, and basically Aiden goes through like this crisis, and he decides that like the way that he's going to get through this crisis is turning towards religion, and so he becomes a monk. And so this is a story about how he became this monk and like what led him to that decision, and how that decision led him away from the love of his life, this man named Elijah. And so this is a story about him and Elijah and like reconciling their relationship and the love and devotion that they have for one another with Aiden and his faith, and like the fact that his vows as a monk are directly in conflict with his potential of being in a relationship with Elijah and like being able to give Elijah the kind of life he thinks Elijah deserves. And this was just so beautiful and so angsty, and I love the writing style. I love the examinations of faith. I love the examination of mental health. I really enjoyed Aiden as a protagonist, and it was just absolutely incredible to me. I loved it so much, and I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook narrator's voice is so fucking sexy. Like, 10 out of 10 would recommend if you are into audiobooks. He was so good. But yeah, it just was like, for me, it was a really complex story, much more complex than I expected it to be, especially because I feel like Sierra Simone is really hailed as this like spicy romance writer, and for me, I feel like her spice is like, it is what it is. But I think what's actually interesting to me is the kind of themes that she likes to deal with and the types of characters that she likes to write, and I feel like those aspects of her writing are so interesting in comparison to like all of the honestly boring smut stuff that she's doing. So I think that it was a huge surprise to me that I really loved this, but I really loved this. It was great. Like, I can't stop talking about it. It was awesome. I think my favorite new to me author might have to be Ashley Herring Blake with Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I really enjoyed that book, and it absolutely took me by surprise. I wanted to love the book mostly because it's sapphic, it's a romance, and the cover's really pretty, so I was like, oh, like, hopefully I enjoy it. But I had no real expectations for it, but I read it in a vlog somewhat recently, so you can check it out. I'll leave it linked below, and I just loved it so much. Like, it was absolutely incredible to me. The characters were just so wonderfully fleshed out, and I felt so attached to them, so attached to the main romance. I felt like the side cast of characters were really interesting. It was very emotionally evocative, but it was also fun and steamy, and I just really enjoyed it so much, and I can't wait to read more by Ashley Herring Blake in the future. I think that so far Ashley Herring Blake has mostly been a YA writer though, so I am going to be, you know, waiting kind of with bated breath for her next adult release, but this was really great. So I definitely think that Ashley made a fan out of me this year, and I will be continuing on with whatever she comes out with next, as exemplified by my earlier answer with Astrid Parker. I can't wait to read that book. Newest fictional crushes. Okay, so the question is actually just crush singular. I am going to make the question plural. So number 1 is Taurus from The Replacements. That is like a boss employee romance. Taurus is like this CEO and his love interest is his secretary. Oh my god, he's so sexy, he's so mean, I love him. We're not going to analyze what any of that means about me, but he was just so fucking sexy, and he was an asshole, and I loved him, and he was bald. I have a thing for bald men. It's true. Next up, we have Dean from Open Hearts. Dean is the himbo hero that everybody has been looking for. He was so sweet and so stupid and so beautiful, and I loved him so much. He was the man of the year. Like, he was incredible. I loved him. I loved his love interest. His love interest was also pretty hot too. Ashley, call me anytime. They were great together, separately, whatever. It was all good. I'd love to be a part of that sandwich. Incredible stuff. Also, Delilah from Delilah Green. We love a tattooed baddie. Just mwah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And my final choices are all from the same book called Looking. Looking is a polyamorous romance about this married couple who get a girlfriend, and their girlfriend Jordan is everything that I aspire to be, but also I'd love to hook up with her one day. And then the married couple, Nadia and Darren, I can't even speak. They were the moment, the way, and the truth. I love them so much. And I definitely recommend this if you're looking for something short, sweet, and spicy. Read this. Read it. It was incredible. So yeah, love them all. Those are all my crushes. Would marry them all. Would join all of their relationships in a heartbeat if I could. My newest favorite character has to be Faye from You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I think that she's such an interesting character. I think she was so real and messy and funny, and I loved her, and I just felt like she was really well realized as a character. I felt like I knew her. I felt like she was my friend, and like I was experiencing the whole narrative and the book itself as if I was someone in her friend group, like getting all the drama and the tea. And there was something about the writing style in that book that just made me feel really connected to Faye so immediately, and I loved her. So she's definitely one of my favorite characters that I've read this year. Really loved her. Books that made me cry. I cry so frequently that it's not funny over books, but I think I'm going to just choose 2. So the 2 that I'm going to talk about are Real by Kennedy Ryan. This is a forbidden like workplace romance between the director of this blockbuster film and the leading lady on his film. And this is a really beautiful romance. Like, it's just absolutely incredible. It's, I don't want to say a slow burn, but like they take their time to really build up the tension, and the relationship is just so good, and there's lots of angst, and it's just incredible. And it also has a chronic illness rep, and so there's some stuff going on with the main character and her health, and so I feel like all of that was like really emotional to read about, and the book just made me cry. I just cried so much, and I think this book has so many beautiful things to say about like unconditional love, and it just made me sob. It made me very much break down. I have a whole vlog where you can see me reading it and crying about it. It was a good time. I loved it so much. And similarly, I read Masters of Death by Olivia Blake, and I have a vlog of me reading it and crying about it. And Masters of Death is this fantasy paranormal novel that is about a lot of different stuff. Difficult to explain. It's about this guy named Fox, and he is the godson of death, and he gets involved in like this immortal mischief and mayhem and all this other stuff. But it's also a story about Fox and like his long lost love, and Fox and his long lost love made me cry so bad. I was sobbing, and you can see that in a video that I will leave linked below. But it was just like their connection, their relationship, it just got me. It got me, and I cried about it. So yeah, those 2 definitely made me cry. A book that made me happy. A book that made me happy, I would definitely have to go with Legends and Lattes by, what is the author's name? Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a cozy fantasy about this orc named Viv, and she is a mercenary, or was, and she's recently gone into retirement, and she's like, you know what, I'm going to open a coffee shop in a new town, I'm going to start over. It's about her kind of building her small business from the ground up, and it's about the community that forms around her coffee shop, and like her employees, and it's just really beautiful community-minded story, and it's so fun and so sweet, and there is a sapphic romance in it, and it's just great. I think that it's really good for honestly anybody who's looking for a cute, short, fun time, but also it was so perfect for me as a fantasy reader because I love fantasy, but I don't always want to read about like gore and death and war and sadness, and so this was just so perfect for me to read about a fantasy world full of magical creatures, but they're doing really mundane things like making lattes. Like, it was just really fun and it made me very happy. So most beautiful book that I bought this year, okay, I'm gonna go perhaps with a non-traditional answer to this question, and I'm going to say my most beautiful book this year is Fangs by Billy Balabali. I don't know how to say the person's last name, but this is a vampire manga, and I'm saying that this is my most beautiful just because I think that the art in this is incredible. I'm trying to kind of flip through fast because it's actually a very explicit comic, so I don't want to, you know, don't want to get the video flagged or anything like that, but the artwork in this is just so stunning. Definitely my favorite art style that I've ever come across in a manga personally, so I would definitely have to say that this is like the most beautiful book I've purchased this year. Usually this prompt goes for like a beautiful cover, and I think this cover is actually, you know, quite pretty, but I don't think it's pretty in like a traditional sense perhaps, but like I like it, and I think the insides are just absolutely fucking gorgeous, like truly fantastic stuff. So yeah, final question, what are some books that you still need to read this year? So I still want to read The Blood Trials by, I can't remember who was by actually. Oh, it's right behind me. The Blood Trials by Annie Davenport. I still want to read that. That is a like new adult fantasy novel that came out with a black protagonist, and I've heard some good things about it. I also saw some fan art about it that was a little bit spicy unexpectedly, so I'm intrigued to see what's going on with that book. So I want to give that one a shot soon. I still want to read Kaikei. I meant to read that in the spring. It was on my spring TBR, but I never got around to it. I want to read The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper, which is a historical fiction. It's set during like the Roman Empire or maybe the Roman Republic. I can't recall. One or the other. But it's a historical fiction, and I've been hearing lots of buzz about it on TikTok, so I am pretty excited to read that one soon. I also want to read Senlin Ascends. I have had this on my TBR for so long, and I've been doing really bad on my fantasy TBR this year, so I do want to dive into at least one of the series that was on my fantasy TBR this year. So Senlin Ascends might be the one. And I want to read Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This is his newest release, and this is like a sci-fi thriller about this character whose human genome gets hacked, and he's like becomes an evolved type of human. And I don't know, it just sounds pretty interesting, and I love a good sci-fi. I rarely read it, but I do love a good sci-fi, and I particularly love Blake Crouch. Dark Matter is one of my favorite books of all time, so I can't wait to read what he's put out most recently. So yeah, that's all the questions. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do be sure to let me know what's like your favorite book that you've read so far this year. I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll see you all in my next one. Bye you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Special thank you to all my wonderful patrons.